Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to another third channel walk and talk video. Today I'm somewhere near London Bridge. I don't know precisely where, maybe we'll find out during the course of this video. And I wanted to talk about something because I've been in the room for a lot of Q&A style panels in the Minecraft world, and there'll always be a question that's something weird like, when are you going to add an end boss to Minecraft? And everyone just looks at each other and goes, there already is one? Maybe we'll think about adding a second one. In other words, it's a dumb question with a dumb answer because it's founded on a dumb view of reality. And this reminds me a lot of how people talk about you know what, let's dive controversy. Vaccine passports, right? People will make the joke that, like, you know, these people are so opposed to a vaccination record being required to get in places, a vaccine passport, if you will. But little do they know that there's this vaccine passport. It just doesn't contain your vaccine information, but you need it to go to other countries. It's crazy. It's exactly the same thing, and so I don't see why they're opposed to it. And it's really interesting to me because it's basically positing that these other people don't understand that reality does have ID that's required for all forms of situations. Like, you don't need to use a passport necessarily, but you need identification and all your details, including your address, your date of birth, and in some cases like your blood details. You need these pieces of information just to buy alcohol or cigarettes or to participate in lots of other parts of society that everyone agrees that when you're an adult you should be able to do, but yet you can't without proof. And it's interesting because this is one of those things where people will argue very strongly, about what should change without fully understanding the present. And there's so many of these. There is so many. And I feel like today I wanted to just kind of vaguely go over the fact that people, one of the key clear principles in any democracy should be having information be as widely available as possible. In fact, a democracy, a group of rules where people all decide on what the rules should be, can only work when people fully understand how things actually are right now. And I know the vaccine passport thing, if like, actually we already have passports, but actually, they're very different. And actually, the interesting thing about it, because even though that's correct that like we need like to show ID and all these things for all sorts of day-to-day life, it's also true that a lot of people don't choose to get them. In the United States, only a third of people have a passport, which means 2/3 of people choose not to have a non-vaccine, non-passport thing. And it's like, oh, actually, that is incredibly interesting that people will forego the privilege, because it really is a privilege to travel overseas, whereas it is a right to, I don't know, eat a banana, I'm assuming. Is it a right to eat bananas? There's an argument that there's exploitation or something in there, but I'm not going to make it because I think they're an average fruit, and I think you should not eat bananas, not because they're exploitative, but because they don't even taste very good anyway. Anyway, so one of my favorite examples of this is people advocating for super, people are like, I think the government should be redistributionalist, I'm very confused as to why the government is enriching the rich and is taking from the poor to do so, or whatever the example may be. I think in my ideal world, the government would take from the rich and give to the poor. Wow, my dream is amazing right there. But it's like, well, that's a fun dream you're saying, but that's also what reality is. I don't know if you know this, but almost every government policy, the vast majority of them by spending, are measures that either give to lower income people or to all income people, and if you give the same amount to everyone, that is disproportionately as a percentage of wealth going to poor or middle income people anyway. And again, most government taxation, which is the way they raise this money, comes from higher incomes because it's all based on percentages, and it's not just based on percent. So if you have, if you spend £1,000 on a bike, the VAT is £200. If you spend £10,000 on a bike, the VAT is £2,000. Did I get that right? Anyway, and if you earn $1 million a year, your taxes actually, but it's not just like that. It's also the fact that if you earn £1 million a year, your taxes are a higher percentage than if you earn £100,000 a year, and it's a much higher percentage when you earn £10,000 a year. We have a system that does, in almost every single field and every single job, it is trying its best to redistribute. There is vast quantities, at least half just under half of the economy comes from taxes and is spent either evenly or disproportionately in lowering. And it's like, so everything, if that's not your base understanding, of course you're going to be mad when you're like, yeah, I think that this should be the case. But what the real arguments need to be, you need to argue from the current position of like, should we increase those measures? You know, instead of 47% of your money being taken away when you earn, you know, £150,000, maybe it should be 67 or 87 or 107. I don't know maths. Or maybe you could go the opposite way and you should say, oh, okay, we're already doing it a little bit more than I'd be comfortable with. Maybe it should be 37%. Or, you know, better yet, you know, go to the middle incomes where it's really being squeezed and be like, instead of paying 32% tax on the first 50 grand you earn, maybe it should, which is 20% tax plus 12% national insurance, before someone's a pedant out there and doesn't understand reality and thinks that I'm just getting the numbers wrong because they don't understand that there's actually an additional tax which you have to pay regardless of your income and therefore is an income tax. But you know, that's an example right there. Or there's so many other weird examples of like, oh yeah, I don't like the idea of like I know a police society where like you can be you know, pulled off the street for anything, and it's like, you know, pretty much at the discretion of an officer. You know, like you can be suspected for murder and you can be taken away somewhere, right? Like, and it's great that they choose not to do this a lot of the time, but like within their power set, it is right there. Another example would like obviously is if it's abused too much, that's kind of the check and the balance on that. But that is why all sorts, and you know, like there are all sorts of measures to protect police officers so that they'll do these things. Wow, that's interesting. Or maybe you could argue the other way and be like, well, yeah, because that is the only thing that will help them enforce the laws. Like my favorite law that needs to be enforced. I'm really horrified. I don't want to discuss this. It makes me feel physically sick when I picture someone riding an e-scooter. Like, don't they know they could hit my grandma and kill her? If not hit her and kill her, they'd cough in her face, am I right? But I'm physically disgusted by these e-scooter riders, and you know, sometimes they ride on the pavement. I don't know why they're not riding on the road with the giant vehicles that have a vendetta and try to kill them, but sometimes they go on the pavement and they could hit someone. And you know, I want to stop this. I'm against e-scooters. I'm against e-scooters more than I'm against anything else, because they're a vicious scourge. They really are. I'm in a very residential area. It's interesting. It's kind of nice though. The buildings are very old-timey. Yeah, e-scooters are this vicious scourge, and they need to be made illegal, because there's no way someone should be able to ride a thing that can go that speed on the road without needing a license and insurance and all these sorts of things that, by the way, are only not available because they're illegal, which makes them illegal because those things aren't available, and it's a self-fulfilling cycle. So yeah, you know, the vicious scourge want to get them to the road, but it's like, you know, there is this vehicle type. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's the bicycle. The bicycle, I think is what it is. And you can ride that. In fact, whenever I'm riding an e-scooter at 15 miles per hour, I'm always overtaken by bikes going like 20. And it's like, oh, but that's like, you know, that's fine because, you know, like it's a bike, it's been around forever. And it's like, so then the e-bike, it's like, ooh, now that there's electric involved, I think it needs a license again. There's this like really hypocritical almost stance where it's like, ooh, yeah, I don't feel good about this and I want to change, and so I want to maintain the rules where it's not allowed. And it's like, but this other thing that is basically the same is allowed. In fact, you know, a system where people can hit you on the pavement if they really want to is there. Maybe we should make hitting people on the pavement the thing that's against the rule, or even riding on the pavement full stop if you really want it to be that way. You know, you're going to condemn some number of cyclists and some number of scooter people to their deaths because they, you know, they really want to get off the road where there's a giant lorry, but it's illegal to be on the pavement. That's fine. If you want to make that trade-off, make it. But one of the things that annoys me to no end is that we have these discourses about how to improve our society, and society is improving. That's another thing people don't realize, like, oh, we live in this like worst time ever. 2020, am I right? Or 2021, or, you know, I'm going to start skipping to 2022. 2022, am I right? Worst year in history. Didn't you know what one actor died? And so it's pretty bad. It's like, no, by every metric besides, you have to really cherry pick the metrics you don't want. Like you have to use, you know, you could use total emissions, and it's like, well, but yearly emissions are starting to fall pretty soon. You know, we're finally, you know, we're keeping living standards up, but falling emissions. That's incredible. Like income inequality. Look at that. There's a nature area. Let's go see what's in the nature area. Or you have to use like income inequality, but you have to ignore the stat that overall incomes for every quarter, you know, for every decile, for every quintile, for every group is going up significantly. This isn't nature area, this is just pigeons and a couple kissing on a bench. I mean, I guess that's nature. You're allowed to stare because they're in the nature area. I feel like you might get in trouble for that. See, and I guess it's like, it's entire, and you're not, oh God, that is the saddest dead pigeon I've ever seen. Glad you're not looking at it. What happened to him? Anyway, and so I think that this is a really interesting little area I found myself in, huh? I think that it's entirely understandable that you don't understand those, like, that you might not know how the current tax system works. It's the vast majority of people don't. That you might not understand e-scooter laws. In the same way, I have no clue about divorce laws. I have the very loosest cultural understanding that you get half when you break up, but I know that's not correct. I know there's actually something about the wife, it's about the situation, like if she sacrificed her career for you, then she'll get some more or less. And again, I don't know the full situation, and they'll take into account if you've got kids. And the reason that they'll be unfair to you if you've got kids is because it's better to be unfair to you than to be unfair to a child. There's a rule that's built in the system, but I don't know the rest of it. I don't know the details and how they go about that. I know that a prenup isn't fully binding, but it usually is, but like, I don't know what makes the usually true. I don't know so many things. I legally am not able to drive a car right now until I've gone through that. So I don't know what some roads, actually I did the theory test, so I know what road signs mean, but there's a lot of weird things I don't fully understand. I don't know how an engine works. There's magic explosions that happen inside a box and then things go kaput. But the thing is, the difference is I'm not trying to argue about how to design a better engine. I'm not trying to be out here like, actually I feel like electric has to be better than having a little combustion engine inside a car, right? Probably. But I wouldn't vote to say that you can't have your combustion engine in your car, because I don't know what all the benefits that you like are. I know people seem to like them, and I think the point I'm trying to raise this video is that life is very complex, and not understanding the current situation, but then arguing for what you think the current situation should be, when really you're arguing for something that's either exactly what we have right now, or it's even more tame than the current situation. It defeats the point of any discourse. It's like whenever an immigration argument comes up, it's always like, you know, there's like two sides. One basically yells like, we should let everyone in, you know, all the time. And, you know, people are like, well, realistically, they only want to let like a few 100,000 in. The other side's like, we should let no one in. And then it's like, well, really, we should just try to, you know, like, we should just be trying to get like, you know, this number right here. And though, like, having an argument about like zero immigration or all the immigration while genuinely believing the other party will do the opposite one, it's like, well, that's not going to work regardless. Even with the most restrictive policies you could have, the most nationalist, anti, you know, xenophobic, we literally don't want any foreigners of any type, you would still end up with immigration of like, you know, what about someone whose spouse is outside the country? What about, you know, like refugees that by international law you are bound to accept if they can make it to your physical border? Very weird rules, by the way. Story for another day. But not even a story. Again, it's not something I know enough about because I'm not a refugee lawyer, and so I'm not gonna try too hard to argue for those law changes. My point here is that I think that one of the things we do best as a society is when we all specialize, and then we all try our best to listen to what other people are specialized in. And when you ignore that system, you take us back in time. It's when things were worse, when we did have higher mortality rates from basically everything that didn't start with a COVID-19. My point here is that making strong arguments about things you don't know about is a very easy way to seem like an idiot, but also to make the world a worse place. And so try not to do it, or at least if you are going to do it, make it very clear that you have no clue, because otherwise there's this weird thing where even when something's entirely wrong, it will still spread like wildfire, because once you find out that something you've said was wrong, you still want to double down on it. Once I've said that e-scooters should go on the pavements if it's unsafe on the road, and then I find out that actually it kills 10 pedestrians for every e-scooterist it saves, instead of backing down, I'd be like, well, yeah, but e-scooter riders are good people trying to save the planet, whereas pedestrians, I mean, they're probably all old anyway. you know, ruining our society, darn boomers, deserve to be hit by e-scooters. And yeah, oh, speaking of e-scooters, this is a perfect transition into my next video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Just remember not to be an idiot. It's easy to do. All you gotta do is know what you know and know what you don't know, and you'll be a lot smarter. And the truth is, no matter how smart you are, you'll never know everything. You've got the real smart thing is knowing when people do know everything. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. It smells like barbecue and police apparently. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye. Always have this like big twinge of fear of police. I'm not even riding an e-scooter right now, but I could be. And I'd be in some real trouble if I was not. Goodbye.